Welcome to the BWI Live postgame show. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. The chat is already spicy. So here's what's going to happen. We're going to do what we have done after Penn State losses this year to Ohio State and Michigan. I'm just going to play your comments from the chat as the rebuttal or the however you want to phrase it. James Franklin can't coach. Drew Aller's terrible. Throw out the baby with the bathwater. All of this stuff is bad. You're sad that Penn State lost the game. We're gonna get through all of that today. We're also going to talk about what happened on the field. Our best to do some live analysis as we try to do here and bring what actually happened in the game to you here in the postgame show. But just off the bat, it's not great. Penn State, 540 yards given up in the game. That is toasty. Wow, that's a lot of yardage. Weirdly, Drew Aller threw for almost 300 yards in this game. I don't know how. I don't know where those yards really came from. 343 yards passing. Hollow effort, as it's obvious by what happened late in the game. The running backs played well, but here's the thing. Let me start with generally my opinion of this offense this year. You can't start trying to win in the fourth quarter. So Penn State tries to establish the run the football, come out and do the thing that they do, and it worked early in this game. Penn State was able to move Ole Miss off the line of scrimmage. Some missed gaps as well. I don't know if it was a shock for Ole Miss right away. I don't know what exactly. A couple of the things that was happening early in the game is they were playing this like they were playing an SEC team. So they're playing it as if they were playing a dual threat quarterback, and they're trying to play where they respect the passing game, spreading out the field. But Penn State doesn't, other than through more formation, they don't really threaten the whole field, as we heard ad nauseum through the second half of the game, with Louis Riddick talking about how they don't threaten outside the numbers down the field. Yeah, that's the biggest problem with this offense, is threatening down the field. So, Ole Miss adjusted in the game. Penn State's offense did not adjust. They don't really have an adjustment right now. Let's see. There's no reception by a receiver. Let's see. Keandre Lambert-Smith, a target, no catches. Trey Potts, a target, no catches. Liam Clifford, 3 catches for 25 yards, and Trey Wallace in garbage time for the most part, 4 catches for 67, getting injured at the end of the game. So Penn State's receivers are not a threat. They're still not a threat, even at full strength. Dante Cephas wasn't in the game. What does that mean for Penn State? Penn State has done an excellent job of all of the things they don't want you to know, they don't talk about. And James Franklin accuses people of, why do we have to talk about guys coming back? Well, because they could transfer. Dante Cephas didn't play in this game. Why didn't he play in the game? We don't know. So we're left to either speculate or say nothing, or just say, hey, I didn't see him in the game at all. Where was he? Because he was one of Penn State's most reliable receivers. Keandre Lambert-Smith, they were cycling through all of the receivers, but, Amari Evans, ineffective. Malik Mega played a lot in this game, not really effective. So what's going on at receiver when they're at full strength and they have a very abysmal performance? Tyler Warren, 5 catches, 127 yards, was clearly the star of the game for the offense. But what happened in the third quarter? So first quarter, Penn State's churning out some yards on the ground. Ole Miss adjusts. They add some extra bodies into the run game. They start playing cover 3. They start to do the things that teams have done to Penn State all year. And the points start to dry up. You get the Bo Prabula pass in the middle of the second quarter. And then in the third quarter, Penn State goes 3 and out every single drive of the third quarter. And part of the problem is they're trying to establish the run. So they're running on first down. They're not getting yardage. And then on third down, Ole Miss just started bracketing Tyler Warren, and that's it. That's what they did. And, we're talking maybe 4 to 6 plays, and on 3 of them, they're bracketing Penn State's only receiver that's doing anything in the game. So there you have it. Like, were other players open? Was it Drew Aller's problem? Is Drew Aller bad? That is a film study thing we're going to have to get into. Don't like the body language. Absolutely do not like his body language in the pocket or on the sideline from the shots they were showing in the game. That's not great. Some of those things, there's no getting around those things at this point. I've been waiting for this guy to take the next step in consistency, and it starts with mentality, and it doesn't look good. and that's the confidence you're hoping from to get from him, the leadership you want to have from your quarterback. He doesn't look like he's that guy. So for fans that are saying Bo Pribula is the guy, put him in, he's obviously better. He's obviously more confident. He's absolutely more confident in his assignment than Drew Aller. Here's the thing, and I'm diving into this. I was meaning to get to this later, but it just comes up naturally in this conversation about Drew Aller. I haven't seen Bo Pribula run the drop back passing game. So you're saying Bo Pribula is obviously better. He might also be terrible at passing the football in this offense. We don't know that. That's the part where I can get on board with let's find out, but to say it's obvious that he's better and to say that he is clearly the guy, he can bring you some stuff in the run game. But does he fix the offense? No, I don't think he fixes the offense because we don't have any. There's no evidence that he is going to find open receivers outside of a trick play where he's on the field and they're doing a fake quarterback double pass and the wheel route to Nick Singleton. That is not part of the standard drop back passing game. So it's inconclusive. If you want to argue the positive, okay, we can have a conversation about that. But to say that Drew Aller is terrible and that Bo Pribula is obviously better, Drew Aller is absolutely struggling. That is not what I expected. If you watch the pregame show, if you listen to anything I said this week, I expected the offense to have more answers. And I don't think Ole Miss was doing anything particularly complicated. But Penn State came out and ran the same offense. And they ran it kind of in the same way. I don't think that they did a lot to get Drew Aller in rhythm necessarily. I didn't see anything that was like, let's get some easy throws, let's throw for a high percentage, There was a lot of tight end screens. That's one thing there was a lot of, but this is a defense that while they're not overly talented, they were a good defense at keeping a lid on things, playing in a style that has caused Penn State a lot of frustration by denying some of these easy passes and opening up things that you have to be a good quarterback to take. And Penn State, they didn't have that today. Interestingly, and this is going to kind of cycle into the next thing, we'll get to some of your comments and your questions here on the show. I can see I have 110 comments. So again, the chat is spicy today, and I'm giving you kind of my opening ideas about the game. We'll get into some of your thoughts in just a second. The defense, Adisa Isaac said, we'll see how much I play. Play the first half, and then we'll go from there. Adisa Isaac didn't play after halftime. Caden Wallace didn't play after halftime. I think Curtis Jacobs played a little bit more, but you started to see Dom DeLuca in the game. Abdul Carter being injured obviously was a big part of the game, and then young guys were a story on the defensive side. So we'll get into all of that in a minute. But the story here being the offense scoring 24 points, and really down by, I think it was 3 scores, and they score a touchdown to get down by 2 scores. The effect here is 38-25. It was 17 points. 17 points in the first half, and then a goose egg in the third quarter when we went our separate ways in this game, from Ole Miss going in the direction of winning and Penn State going in the direction of a New Year's 6 loss and finishing 10-3. Do you find yourself struggling in big games? Do you want to give your football team an advantage? If you have a son or a football team and you want to give them an edge on the football field, MMA FX is the thing to do. There's the only comprehensive hand fighting program set available for football players, featuring former Penn State All Big Ten defensive lineman Anthony Zettel. You can see him here on screen. If you're watching if you're listening to the podcast, you can imagine Anthony Zettel and his great hand fighting technique. It's 2 hours of hand fighting and speed training techniques. There are 25 techniques, 60 drills, and 4 levels of difficulty. But don't worry, you don't have to be a hand fighting expert. That's what the video is for. It includes different techniques, angles, slow motion, visual details, and attention to detail to explain the why behind what you're doing. And I've seen Bruce coach in person. He's an excellent coach. So you're going to get one of a very rare thing and one of the most proficient ways of teaching your defensive linemen, your linebackers, and your receivers to either get off press or beat blocks. Penn State could have used more of that today. It's used by a bunch of different programs, not just Penn State. The Giants, Texans, Alabama, Oklahoma, Washington, Virginia Tech, Kentucky, Old Dominion, I think. I might be speaking out of turn on that one, but a lot of different schools, Virginia Tech, all of the Penn State and James Franklin coaching tree. Check it out. MMA FX is the course that you can teach your team this offseason to gain an edge. This is, high school teams especially. I think this is really important for to learn how to use all those gains you get in the offseason in the weight room. So check it out, MMAFX.net. And of course, Bruce giving an awesome deal. If you use the promo code 15BWI, you get 15% off at lombardmma.com/shop. That's lombardmma.com/shop. I wanted to get some of my hand fighting techniques in here. So thanks again to Bruce. He's extending that, by the way. That was for Christmas, but he's feeling giving in the holiday season. So that 15% promo is going on for a little while longer. So make sure you check that out. Okay, let's get to some of your thoughts and questions. As always, I'll be trying to get everybody's perspective, but if you send a super chat, if you send the big bright letters, I'll be able to get to that one. Fire Marcus Higgins. I don't care about the excuses. Can't recruit, can't develop, idiotic hire, clearly. Oh, let Andy Koltonicki go get someone. Okay. So we fired Marcus Higgins. I'm going to put that. We need a whiteboard of everyone that's gotten fired after this game. Stephen Light says, anger is great for engagement. It absolutely is. It is, Stephen. It's certainly, like I said, the chat is spicy today. We've got hundreds of people here. If you're enjoying the opening segment, we're going to be getting into the real show right now, which is your thoughts. For the bloggy is here. Love these guys. Were you surprised the interim DC didn't try to protect the young corners more? Seems like a ton of man coverage for such green defenders. You run what you run. You can't necessarily change the defense in a month. You can emphasize different parts of it, but if you want to put pressure on the quarterback and you want to send Abdul Carter, a lot of times too, and this is the problems, I got to go back and watch the film to see specifically what everyone's doing to identify its man or zone. Because if you're in cover 3 and they're running verticals through the defense, they're running 2 verticals through one section of the defense, that essentially becomes man coverage. So was it all man coverage? It was certainly a lot of man coverage, and I think they're banking on Cam Miller being a big part of that. I guess to answer the question directly, no, I'm not surprised, and I'm not surprised by the result. This was the X factor before the game, the area that I thought Ole Miss could take over with Jackson Dart and his ability to put the ball down the field with accuracy and these receivers. I just thought Penn State's offense would be better to put more game pressure, and the pass rush would get there, but he was getting the ball out quickly because these guys were getting toasted. I guess more fight from guys not named Cam Miller. Daquan Hardy had a decent game from what I can tell. Got to go back and see if there were any things that he gave up that I didn't notice right away, but Zion Tracy and Cam Miller battled, as the de facto number 1 who was pressed up from number 3, and then Zion Tracy, he really struggled in this game. Like he gave up back-to-back plays. One of them was a pre-scored touchdown. But I think some of it was, kind of a cover 3 look that you turn into a cover 1 because of the way that the play runs. If they're going to take those shots against that coverage, that is an ultimate disrespect because they're supposed to be preventing that. Those corners bailing into that deep third are supposed to be preventing you from throwing that. And if they're throwing it anyway, that's not good. So the defense, that was part of the conversation heading into the game. And I get duped by James Franklin all the time. I'm going to stop feeling embarrassed by this. The whole thing about Kalen King during the week deciding he was going to play. There was some not looking at the camera, not looking people in the eye from James Franklin, talking about, didn't directly address it, but the idea that Kalen King was going to play and how much was he going to play, and Olu being here with, that one wasn't surprising that Olu Fashanu wasn't going to play in this game. He said, I'm excited to be in Atlanta with my teammates. And the whole time, I can't sit here and say he's not playing in the game because that could be untrue. And if I say it, I hope that I'm reasonably reliable as a person. So then you go, T. Frank, I thought you said he wasn't gonna play in the game, and then he does. So there's intentional ambiguity from these people in the program so that Ole Miss doesn't have the advantage, which, surprise, they did anyway. KJ Johnson, 77. This was eye-opening how important wide receivers are in today's football. Ole Miss had playmakers for their QB, and Penn State didn't. Yes, absolutely. I don't want to take it all away from Jackson Dart, because you look at those dimes he was dropping. He's an excellent quarterback. He is very, very good. Everyone wants to compare everyone to Trace McSorley. I made that comparison this week. I think he's in a familiar build of a guy who maybe isn't a star in the NFL, but he makes plays for your team, and he did that today. And that was really, to me, coming into this game, I did not think that Penn State was going to give up a lot of rushing yards, and they didn't early in the game. But what happened to get to 540 total yards? And James Franklin's going to talk after the game. We'll find out what he thinks about everything. You can check that out here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. But from my assessment, they do their thing and they go after the run hard. They stop the run early, and Ole Miss wasn't prepared for it. They tried to run the ball, have some balance, and the pressure and the run stopping was there. But Lane Kiffin's not stupid. He's not going to continue to try and run the football. So they go to the passing game, and Trey Harris keeps them in the game while they're kind of adjusting and adapting in the second quarter. And from that point, you know, the tight end takes over, and Penn State had some issues in the secondary with the young players. It's not just Trey Harris. Don't want to make it sound like it was only one guy. They got theirs all over the field today. But it was because Ole Miss didn't stay committed to who they were, and they went with the quick passing game. But with the quick passing game, you don't have to just throw it short. You know, the vertical quick passing game just means how quickly do you get the ball out of the hands of the quarterback, and what are the predominant number of the routes? You know, like, are most of the routes quick? But then you throw a quick fade down the field, and you hit a guy in stride because your quarterback is really accurate and throws with timing and anticipation. So that's a lot of what happened to Penn State today. Is the ball got out quickly. So Isaac's not in the game. You've got Denai Dennis Sutton, Amin Vanover, Zariah Fisher, and they're getting there. I saw plenty of guys get through. It's just the ball is gone before they get out, and that leads to the secondary, right? That leads to how that group is playing. They're playing to such a lower level from what they were previously that the pass rush is negated. And this is another tangent. So, I'll get to some more of your questions and your comments. Remind me to get back to this because I don't want to dominate the ball here. I want to get your thoughts here on the show as well. Greg, total embarrassment, says Greg. So he says they made adjustments necessary to turn the game around. I'm assuming he's talking about Ole Miss. Ask Marina how he beat the Bears in 85. Quick release. What pass rush? Yeah, that's quick release is absolutely right. That's what we were just talking about. Let's get some of the people that were here early. James absolutely cost the win. Perbula can win, but James clock blocks him. Yeah, sorry. You got me, Joe, but I thought you said clock block because of the way he handled the end of the game, the end of the second quarter. So we haven't had a James Franklin end of half conversation in I think since 2021. Maybe there was one in 2022. I don't remember, but this was another one. And I'm just going to bring this up because, I thought it was interesting. I bless you, son. Can't wait to hear what our Lord and Savior Thomas Frank Carr has to say about this. Well, I'm going to say that as much as people don't want to hear about it, not having a star pass rusher and your two top corners does change the game, but the offense was bad. So I bless you, my son. You can, I apologize for gendering you. Probably shouldn't have done that. Bless you, my child. You are free to be angry about this game. Fire James Franklin. What a clown. There's no defending James Franklin. He can't get it done in big games, says Julian Rodriguez. Steven says, I'm glad Franklin doesn't tell us who is opting out because that helps them, as you see. Yes, we arrive in the same spot, Steven. It doesn't change the fact that Olu isn't playing. Man, there are so many tangents. We got to talk about Drew Shelton in this game. Drew Allure looks like a deer in headlights. Pocket still no confidence. You can't teach that. Might not be the answer. Stephen, it is getting harder to sit here and say be patient and wait for him to develop, wait for him to get the right situation, the off, et cetera, et cetera. There are certain things that show up, and the talent is there. He sees the game until he doesn't, and you can get to him. I think it's pretty clear. You can get to Drew Aller, and you can rattle him, as Stephen points out. That is alarming. Andy Kotelnicki, new offense. Obviously, James Franklin hasn't gone anywhere, despite what the staff in the chat has said, that they would like to fire him. He hasn't gone anywhere, so it's not like there's a clean slate from the head coach. Jobot, not interested in opt-outs, blah, blah, blah. Excuses. This team needs to let James go. So James Franklin needs to fire. Pathetic team. I'm glad you enjoy losing. I swear these games are, they are only game planning for interior teams. Yeah, for teams that can handle the interior run game. I think that there is something to that, where they don't seem to have a lot of diversity in the run game. They don't seem to have a lot of diversity in the offense in general. Okay, we got HJB96X. Is Dante Cephas transferring? What the hell was that? Yeah, I don't know. Nobody asked about Dante Cephas. Nobody thought to ask about Dante Cephas. So what happened? We will have to find out. James Franklin hopefully will have a question about that. We won't get an answer. And wow, he hasn't even been here 2 years. Fire James Franklin and the Penn State athletic director. He's building you a new stadium, but fire Pat Kraft as well. So Marcus Hagans, did we get any of the defensive coaches? Did they need to be fired? Pat Kraft, James Franklin, Drew Aller, Dante Cephas, everyone's transferring and everyone is bad. It hurts to lose, I can understand. The Penn State team is seriously in trouble next year. Kashmir Kelly, I think you have a point. And I want to get to this point because there was a conversation this last month. Hire Anthony Poindexter, have him run Manny Diaz's defense. There's a bunch of stuff that goes into Manny Diaz's defense. And this is what I was trying to write about, talking about Tom Allen, and maybe they shift to a zone concept, and they're not so aggressive. Like for the blog he asked about running as much man coverage in this game. You need the corners and defensive ends to play that style. Manny Diaz at Miami did not have this success because he didn't have the horses to run this particular team. He comes to Penn State, he has the talent, and you see the results of it. Anthony Poindexter was not working with the same deck of cards. So let's talk about some more in-game stuff. I'm going to use this as a tangent back into what I'm comfortable with, which is kind of the X's and O's. So Penn State is getting torched on the outside, and they need to start allocating more pressure to coverage. You can't drop a safety in the box. You can't be as aggressive with your run blitzes. You have to play a little bit more evenly because you're getting beat on the outside. You need to give those guys some help. So you're running some 6-man boxes, which opens up the quarterback run game and generally means that you're on a knife's edge when it comes to how you can play the run. Then Abdul Carter gets hurt. And now you're in serious trouble because one of the things that he does really well now is they will run blitz him and they will use him to redirect the running back. We're going to clog the point of attack, then Devon Ellies can clean up or Kobe King can clean up, and we're going to use his athleticism and his ability to bend and get around blocks in order to force you into a certain look that you don't want to be in. Now he can't take on a block and defeat it the same way. He can't use power through his rush. Maybe he still technically can run. Maybe he can still run sideline to sideline, but everything that made him special is now not there. So you can't use him to eat up gaps. And by the way, at 250, he's basically like another defensive end on the football field. So your advantage of having 4 or 5 defensive linemen out there with Abdul Carter now is just, it's gone. So you have this big physical box with Kobe King and with Abdul Carter, and Carter is not playing to that level. Now the run game is leaking. So you get 57 yards rushing in the third quarter to go with, whatever was 134 total yards in that game. You can do the math. I've done math on the fly and it's been embarrassing. So yeah, next year, Penn State does not have 2 starting corners ready to take over the way they did this year. They've restocked with some talent. There's definitely talent there, but you saw Zion Tracy, like just the time it takes to mature. 2019, Joey Porter Jr. was not the guy he was in 2022. So it takes time for that position to develop. And Chop Robinson was special. You don't get special guys all the time. Denai Dennis Sutton is a really good defensive end, and he came off hot early in the game. But he's not a guy yet that is going to consistently get you elite wins and change the math of a game where they can't throw the football anymore. He was still, I imagine he did a decent job from a pressure standpoint and all those things today. But they need to ensure that whether it's Jameel Lyons or whomever, that they have 2 pass rushers next year, even if it has to be Abdul Carter. So going back to Penn State's in serious trouble next year, kind of talking all around this point, the offense has no weapons. If Keandre Lambert-Smith expected him to move on, Dante Cephas doesn't play in this game, don't know the situation there. He can come back, but what did we really see from the receiving core? And presumably, reportedly, they're going to get a transfer portal receiver. None of that has been official yet. Julian Fleming has reports that he's leaning towards Penn State. We don't have any actual information about that. And if you want any of the details of what's going on there, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com is the place to go. You can sign up right now for a sweet, sweet deal. 2 months for $1. Use code PSU1, and you can learn how Penn State is in serious trouble next year, as you can see from Kashmir. That's the Blue White Illustrated YouTube special. Sign up 2 months for $1 and use the promo code PSU1 when you sign up to get that deal, and you'll get access through the official signing day and beyond. Okay, so my tangent is over. Got to get back to what we're talking about here. Jeremy says Jackson Dart is what Drew Aller dreams of being. Yeah, actually, in a certain sense, accurate downfield thrower. If you gave Jackson Dart Drew Aller's arm talent, then yeah, I think you would have a first-round pick. But it is frustrating. It is frustrating to watch somebody who is obviously talented, and I have seen do it. Just not do it. Just not do it. And to sit here on the postgame show and say, hey, was anyone open? What were the concepts they were running? There's a lot of stuff that goes on off screen when you're watching football that I'll need to get into T. Frank's film room to digest and diagnose and all of those things. But it didn't look good. It looked like a finicky, little bit scattershot quarterback in the pocket who is concerned about taking sacks and getting hit and not keeping his eyes downfield and stepping into the pocket. He also, got pressure all up the middle quite a bit today. KJ Johnson says, find me a positive, T. Frank. Any young player stand out today? Shelton was up and down to me all day. Yeah, Drew Shelton started out great. So in zone plays, there are certain blocks where you need to essentially run in front of a defender who's inside of you on the offensive and defensive line at the line of scrimmage. So if you're running to the right, you're the left tackle, you need to get to the right side of the guy inside of you. And he was making those blocks early. And Penn State, some holding plays, but they were getting chunk yardage. And a big part of that was he was playing really well against the run and not so great against the pass. There was one play where he gives up I believe it was the play where Aller, no, it was not the interception. It was a play where Aller throws kind of a duck. His arm gets hit as he throws. And at first I put that kind of on Nick Singleton as well because he runs into Drew Shelton in the middle of his pass protection. I think that Shelton was expecting help on a double team, on a chip block. And instead of hitting the defensive end, Singleton runs into his offensive lineman. So the pressure gets there. Don't know how to square that one up, but there were some bad losses. Either in the run game, falling off blocks at the second level, missing blocks and falling over, slipping off of guys, not finishing plays. Shelton, his calling card has been being a run blocker, a difference maker. So I know that you're asking me to find a positive, but you did end with Shelton was up and down. If Penn State's, found their way into a tackle in the transfer portal, I don't think it's just a left tackle. I think it's still up in the air if Shelton is going to play left or right because he did not look very good in this game, and that tracks with what we've seen from him previously of the pass protection is still a work in progress. The obvious positive, I would say, is Tyler Warren. But if we want to go beyond that, Anthony Donko at first blush didn't look bad playing right tackle because he's the guy that played right tackle after Caden Wallace sat for the third quarter and on. He moved dudes in the run game. So Anthony Donko is in the conversation, I think, now to be a tackle, which is surprising because everything we had seen is Javen Williams had been the guy playing right tackle in practice when we got our view of practice. So some versatility there from a guy with super long arms and super athleticism, seems to be mentally locked in and kind of the gets it sort of situation. Defensively, I thought Keon Wiley looked good. I thought he executed his assignments well and was getting to the football. So positivity there for backing up Kobe King and Tyler Elsdon. And generally, the linebackers are coming back next year, right? So that's a positive. Other positives. Yeah, I think we covered them. A lot of busted coverages today because I wanted to talk about KJ Winston in that, but I believe, based on what I saw quickly of trying to review the film as the game is going on, the big play to Priestcorn where he got down into the red zone, I'm fairly certain that was KJ Winston biting on the run fake and not taking his guy in coverage. So here's another part of the just be Manny, right? So you're Anthony Poindexter. Just be Manny. Just do what he does. There's a certain amount of secret sauce that is Manny Diaz, that is this defense. And calling it, there is something to great play callers. We've seen that. Penn State hasn't had a great play caller on offense for a while, and it shows. Penn State had a great play caller on defense. They had a lot of talent, and they became what they became. So, kind of going roundabout back to the point of Tom Allen coming in and putting his own defense in, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think that Penn State did what they needed to do to find the next guy that is the play caller, not necessarily just somebody to try and photocopy what you were doing previously, because as you can see, this defense needs a really good football player. So as bad as people think that Kalen King played this season comparative to what he did previously, he was still good enough that none of this happened during the regular season. Stephen Light says, unfortunately, Aller doesn't have it. Gotta try another QB. It's not just going to happen for him. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of my truth juice here. Because Stephen has been... Hold on. Stephen has been excellent. He was out on Mike Yursich, and the Mike Yursich got fired. And he's saying he's out on Aller. So our Schwami here he's out on Aller. I guess it's Bo Prabula time. Or maybe we'll see what the freshman has if you want to go all the way down to Ethan Grunkmeyer. Which, as a side note, all the issues that you're having with Aller, antsy in the pocket and those things, I don't see any of that in Grunkmeyer's game. I did see this stuff in his high school game for Aller. There were times that he did this, but he also made great plays on the run and, dominated in high school. So not everything translates. Some things do, some things don't, some things get better. But off the bat, some of these mental aspect things, I haven't seen them from Grunkmeyer. But who knows? We'll see. Crypto Ducat is here. Are you guys going to admit that you got suckered into the James Franklin hype sold to you this offseason? This team was a fraud. No, I'm not going to admit to anything. Just because of the way you phrase that question, when you come at me with combativeness, no, I'm going to be what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, yeah, I'm just gonna dig my heels in. No, I didn't buy into the hype. I bought into Drew Aller being a 5-star quarterback. I don't think James Franklin sold anything. He was actually selling what we got, which was, hey, this is a ball control offense. And I was like, yeah, but the 5-star quarterback. And, that's where I made my mistake, is I keep expecting him to take that step, and he hasn't taken that step. Bruno Salteman. Bruno, you've been on here before. I'm sorry for butchering your last name. Thank you for the great work all this year from you guys. Are people missing Clifford already? Confident next year's offense will be better. People complaining are misled by the results because of opt-outs. Bruno, I appreciate you allowing for opt-outs to be a part of the conversation from a schematic standpoint, especially on the defensive side. Not having the best left tackle in America is a problem. It caused some problems today, but the offense wasn't good. And I do want to admit and be fair about that as well. But I appreciate you having some positivity. I appreciate you bringing some balance to the force here. Let's see. We got a couple people here that are thrown in the chat, and I apologize for everyone that's listening on the podcast of hearing me reading, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and I try to do my best to make sure that everything is smooth. It's not always going to be smooth, and I've had to accept that here on the postgame show. What I do want to talk to you about right now is Gametime, because the Penn State football season is over, and it sounds like that's kind of a mercy for some of you in the chat. Like, you haven't really enjoyed football this year. So go to a concert, flush this out of your system. Maybe, hell, go to the college football playoff if there's tickets left. I'm sure it'll cost you an arm and a leg and you have to donate some plasma, but you could probably go. And I know a place that's going to get you a great deal on tickets, as good as you're going to get, and that is Gametime. Gametime is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. They're obsessed with finding you ways to save money on tickets. So go to gametime.co. That's their website. But the best way is to download the Gametime app, use the promo code BWI. That's BWI. And you will get $20 off your first purchase. So there's another great way that you can use the Gametime app, and you can get some money off on those tickets. But just flush it from your system. Go to a concert, see your favorite band. And the great thing with Gametime, whether it's the app or the website, is that you can filter by location. I just sometimes, because I am so terrible at this, I'll just Google like Bryce Jordan Center. What's going on at the BJC? I don't know. And they'll tell you all the events, they'll show you the tickets, and they'll let you go and filter through and find the best deal, and pictures of your seats, so you have confidence in what you're buying, so you won't be behind a post when you're trying to go to a concert. Although, having been to a couple of concerts, I feel like it doesn't matter where you sit sometimes, you're just there to listen to the music and look at the giant video board. Like, you're watching the concert on TV at a certain point. But if you enjoy that kind of stuff, Gametime is the place. Let's get into the chat. Steven donates a super sticker. Steven, I will try to find your comment later. Hopefully you had something to say. Dylan did the same thing. Appreciate you guys being here on the show. Better hit that portal for all positions, says JBiz. Do you notice how, and this is another one of those things, and okay, I'm going to give you a nugget here for the Fire Franklin crowd, something that bothers me. And it is the thing that I think James Franklin's job is to put Penn State in the best position possible and to win on every front. And sometimes he's his own worst enemy. Like talking about how Penn State is not a big portal team and we're a recruiting team. And trust me, JBiz, I bet they want to get an offensive tackle, a corner, and maybe two receivers from the portal. But the messaging now for the last week, for the last 2 weeks, during all this lead up to the bowl game is we're not a big portal team. Is that by choice? Because we haven't heard a whole lot from the portal. The portal closes January 1st, I believe. So if things are going to get done under the wire, it's got to happen in the next 2 days, which will kill me, by the way, if we're doing breaking news videos about a bunch of guys signing with Penn State while I'm trying to do film review. So that's annoying. And I understand that it doesn't matter if it's annoying. James Franklin is trying to make sure that he is putting Penn State in the best position possible. And genuinely, I don't fault him for that. But it is the narrative battle. What is honest and what is spin? And there's the spin. That's the problem. Because, yeah, Penn State needs to hit the portal for a couple of different positions if they're going to try and play a similar style next year, or they got to bank on some serious development from some young players who maybe aren't ready for prime time yet. And that is going back to the question or the comment we had a couple of minutes ago about Penn State being in trouble. I don't know that they're in serious trouble the way it was phrased. They're still going to be a good team that wins 9 games maybe next year, as a floor. Just I'm wildly throwing a number out there, 1 less than this year, but they're not going to be defensively dominant the same way. That would be hard to do when you don't have 2 corners that are going to go on day 2 is just generally where I'm throwing Kalen King and Johnny Dixon. By the way, seeing this defense without them, I do think that it is very much apparent that their impact was they were very valuable on this defense, and that their draft stock is not in the 4th or 5th round. From a talent perspective, this was the best team in the James Franklin era. Where's the talent coming from the next 2 years? They do have good talent. I think the 2024 class has a lot of potential. It might be it's dripping with talent and frame and length and athleticism. Those guys need time to develop, but 22 and 23 were good football classes, especially in certain areas where Penn State really needs it. I think they got a quarterback of the future in Ethan Grunkmeyer. They have a great offensive line right now. They added to it in 23. Anthony Donko, I am amazed. I can't even begin to tell you where he was last year compared to where he is now. It's a different football player. Anthony Donko did not get football in high school. He didn't really play all that well from the offensive line perspective of playing with speed and anticipation and domination and all those things. He was thinking the whole time. But here's the good thing about guys that think is that some of them turn into guys that don't need to think anymore. And Donko, his progress, from what Sean Fitz has said, surprised Lash Building as much as it surprised me. And I'm blown away at the ability he has shown, because one of the things I said about him during his, lead into, his junior and senior season is he has great length, but who cares if you don't know how to use it? There are certain guys that have 36-inch arms that have, stiffness somewhere where they can't really, they're not mobile enough to use the athleticism that they've been given from a frame perspective. There are certain guys that lunge. There are certain guys that just don't play with the quickness of mentality, et cetera, et cetera. And he fell into that bucket and he hopped right out, like immediately as soon as he got to Penn State. So the talent, and this is just one example that I'm going for too long on, but there's just one player that is talented. But in the flashy positions we care about, receiver, that's a problem. That is still a problem next year. Do they have somebody that can just win, right? Just get open and technical, blah, 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 doesn't matter. Throw him the football and he's open. Drew Rattler has no confidence to do that with any of these guys, because you saw when he throws the ball on a 15-yard in route to Keandre Lambert-Smith doesn't catch it. He throws the ball to Trey Wallace, who doesn't break a tackle or gets hurt on a play. And that's unfair, but it's just unfortunate in a reality that he got hurt on the last play of the game, essentially. So there's that area is a concern. And then if you look at if the defense takes a step back, and this is where Tom Allen and playing zone coverage and trying to not play maybe a ball, like with a bunch of stars across the board, and we're going to do the maximum possible best thing that elite talent at certain positions can do, and then play with zone and try to take the ball away and rally and tackle the football. Not bend but don't break. The point is to get the ball in takeaways and to get vicious hits on the football. I think that there's an avenue forward where they can absorb the cornerback loss, but it still takes good corners to play zone coverage really well. And Penn State has to find those guys. So Elliott Washington, Zion Tracy, John Mitchell, Antoine Belgrave Shorter. You can throw in Lamont Payne wherever he fits into that conversation as well. Somebody has to emerge from the field, or they have to get a corner in the portal. And right now, that's not on track for somebody to come in the spring and do it. Because as we've seen, coming in the mid-semester and after spring camp has broken, that leaves you at a disadvantage, and it takes a very special player to still make plays, especially at a position like corner, where there is a certain amount of thinking and playing within the structure of the defense. Chop Robinson's a great example of somebody who just came in and balled out immediately. A lot of that has to do with defensive end and the way you use them of, go get the quarterback, young man. That's an easier assignment than, hey, you're playing cover 4, but you got to watch for all these things because we might need you to match on this side if this thing happens. If they motion before the play, add a 3x1 set into 2x2, then we're going to go off the match and go back and do. So all of the potentialities that come from playing zone coverage, you kind of want to have a guy here in the spring. And right now they have the guys they have, which are talented. But again, if you're talking about projecting for the future, Cam Miller, I think, battled today. He'll get better, have an opportunity to be a good corner for Penn State. But even if you say he's a good corner and he'll play like who? Is he going to... They don't have a depth of guys like they have. They worked a lot to build up that depth of super talented players that had proven it, and now there's just a question mark. And that's uneasy because at these positions, the standard has to be the standard to play this level of defense. Corner's so important. Crypto Ducat is back. A comment I have. Not a single PSU fan should be upset about any opt-outs. This is an exhibition game. They owe the program and the fans nothing. That's a fair point to take. I think you can be disappointed that players don't play. I owe them nothing breaks the bond, right? So the whole love of sports thing is that you feel connected to these guys and you cheer and you root for them. And I, by the way, I'm professing the opposite here, but I agree with you. In terms of, I don't think that they don't owe fans anything, but it does, and I will give credit to fans that are disappointed. It does break that esprit de corps, right? we're in this together until we're not. But that's the thing that fans have, is that you can fire everybody for why pay $75 million for a recruiting coordinator. Fans can break rank at any time they want. So players, they have this one opportunity here to have an out from that. Chris H says, that's the thing, T. Frank. In elite programs, this kind of performance in a big game gets you fired. Okay. If that's how you feel, okay. Is it an exhibition game? Does this game not matter? Okay. Does this game not matter, or is this a big game? Because you can't have it both ways. And I don't have an opinion, but I'm just coming down on the side of everyone needs to yell a little bit less. They didn't make the college football playoff because they didn't beat Michigan and Ohio State. So this game doesn't mean anything to certain fans. And then Chris says this is an elite game that matters. As the Peach Bowl, a New Year's Six Bowl, it matters. So does it matter or does it not matter? Because if you can't beat Michigan and Ohio State and it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter if they win or lose this game. But if this is also a big game, then you have to give James Franklin credit for winning the Rose Bowl, which is a bigger game. But we don't do that. We're not going to have that conversation because what happened today it didn't feel good. And I get it. There's that. But we're not having an appropriate accounting of all of the things. You can't be in position to be the only program to win all of the New Year's Six Bowls and then also be the program that can't win big games. Which one is it? And I'm not here to tell you it is that they win big games. I'm just here to point out that sort of hypocrisy. Talk amongst yourselves. Stephen Light, question of academic eligibility. If fall semester grades come out poorly, do you still get to play in the bowl game? The new semester hasn't started. And to answer your question more specifically, I have no bleeping idea. Stephen, you asked me a question I don't necessarily know about, but the new semester hasn't started yet, so I imagine any eligibility would have come down after that. But would he be suspended if he was going to be suspended? Because, okay, you didn't get blah, blah, blah. I'm assuming this is going into kind of a roundabout way of talking about Dante Cephas. I don't know. That is speculation. I absolutely do not want to put any sort of credence to this. It's an interesting question, but I don't have any specifics. And because Steven is here, Steven is he's my cue to have a drink of water. Man, we are nearly to an hour in this conversation about Penn State football and firing James Franklin and Drew Aller not being the guy. Some other things from the game. Let's talk about some other things from the game. See if there's anything interesting in my notes here. Yeah, the busted coverages to me, I think, were probably the most disappointing thing in this game. Tony Rojas comes on the field and replacing Abdul Carter, immediately busted coverage. That results in, I think, the 2-point conversion on that play. The busted coverage from Rojas, again, I'm assuming, on the touchdown, where he's lined up at outside linebacker /end. And this is the point of Manny Diaz's defense. There are match calls, in a certain sense, where you go after the quarterback unless X happens, unless the running back goes into pass pattern. And if you don't have a guy out there that is aware and paying attention, you get what these leak out of the backfield. You fake a block, then you go downfield, and the potential for these busted coverages. The miracle is that it didn't happen more, that Manny Diaz was a good enough defensive coordinator and these players were good enough and that the execution was so excellent, they didn't have more busted coverages than they did. Because if you've got what's called a green dog blitz, where you're in coverage until your guy blocks, and then you blitz. If you mess that up, I can count on one hand the number of times I saw it knowingly this year, where I'm like, yep, that's what happened there. And it happened in this game once, and then they had a couple of other busted coverages. And I think that, not having Manny Diaz in the game is a part of that. And that's the part I couldn't answer for people, because people wanted to know, what is the Manny Diaz effect of not having him calling the game? I think it was to the tune of about 150 yards, a couple busted coverages. DC XX. I just want to get drunk. That for suffering through another season. Thanks for suffering through another season with us. Probably 8-4 next year. New Year's Eve is tomorrow, buddy. I'm assuming you're an adult. Hopefully you're not a child saying you want to get drunk. But like, I'm assuming you're an adult. Enjoy responsibly. I understand the pain. Certainly I've done that myself. Crypto Ducat says he spins too much. Great to elite. Dorms, culture, portal, blah, blah, blah. Just should stop. He is his worst enemy on the narrative front, talking about James Franklin, the conversation we had earlier. I tend to agree. I think part of it is that's just who he is. There is the ultimate positivity. If you remember 2007, 16, 17, that time, even before then, when things weren't good for Penn State, James Franklin preached positivity. I'm going to be positive about this stuff. I'm going to be positive. I'm going to look on the bright side. It's going to get better. I'm going to be positive. You're not going to get me to say negative things. We don't have those conversations anymore. But that at the core is really what he's about, which is the most positive position I can put myself and my team in. And you got to firmly believe that, which does come to some of those situations that we've seen so far. Regulars are popping up again. Stephen Light says, this game does not matter. It does matter for 2024 prep, and we found a few things we need to change for 2024. Crypto Ducat back here says, no question, I love your show, and I miss your film room videos. You do a great job. Buddy, I appreciate you. Thank you very much. I will never forget whichever game it was. I think it was the Ohio State game where, if you guys don't remember, Crypto Ducat was here, and he paid $20 a pop just to argue with me on camera. And that's the level of dedication that we need here on the show. Like you don't need to do that. That's a joke. But I appreciate all of you here. Is there anything in here, any questions you guys have, any comments about something we haven't covered yet? Because I do want to talk about the game and talk about, I don't necessarily want to bring up Joe Pa, and I don't want to bring up other things from, well, we did it this way 20 years ago. But if there's any other things that you want to talk about today on the show, I would like to get to those. But Frank L is back with, we're playing the hits. Franklin can't beat a Power 5 school. Can him. Punctuation helps. I get it's the internet. I don't use punctuation, but when I'm reading these things live, punctuation would help. But Frank, I appreciate you coming here to play Freebird. The hits are playing in the jukebox here in the chat. Do I have anything else here? Here's the thing. And this is something that I'm frustrated with, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I don't feel like I nailed this point down. Penn State, when they're in this 12 personnel world where we want to be a run team, 2 tight ends, be physical, establish the line of scrimmage, manly football. And then in the fourth quarter, they use tempo, and they throw the ball, and suddenly there are more open receivers. That's a little frustrating to watch from a process standpoint. Why can't you throw the ball more early? And, maybe I'm asking for, why can't you just blot out the sun for a couple hours if you don't have receivers? It might feel like the same thing. But Lane Kiffin used tempo, and he used a bunch of different tricks in his offense this year to generate yardage. And it didn't work early, but then they found a rhythm and they attacked. And when they attacked, it was very quick, and they hit. Penn State couldn't offensively muster the same thing until the fourth quarter, when suddenly now the offense springs to life, and maybe they're down more scores than it, maybe you're playing some softer coverages, but Penn State did things that got yards. Going 3 and out is tough, and doing those things in the third quarter, but I don't believe that they would have done those things in the third quarter anyway. There has to be significant game pressure for them to change the plan. And this is the thing with a running team, and why Penn State absolutely needs to find receivers, is because you can shut down a running game with numbers. You play cover 3, and from what I saw, just trying to go back and look through the third quarter when they had 9 plays and see what Ole Miss was running, they had some combo coverages in there, like they were doubling Tyler Warren, but then on other plays, they're just playing cover 3 and throwing a safety into the box. And you're adding numbers, and not only is it that you're adding another defender into the box, but you feel more confident for those other players to be aggressive. So Abdul Carter can blow past an offensive lineman because he knows, he's got KJ Winston behind him to clean anything up, or Jalen Reed coming down from, the apex from the top of the box. And if you don't present a passing threat, a running team has to be so dominant in order to win games, which is why it was suspicious that Michigan suddenly is great at football. J.J. McCarthy is a big part of that, his dual threat ability. He can throw the football for real. First time they've had a quarterback that can do that. But their ideas didn't really change. Their philosophy didn't really change, which is the thing that was suspicious this whole time. And then we find out all the stuff that was going on. And it makes a little more sense now. But at the same time, not everyone's doing that part. So you need to find a way to have balance. And James Franklin talked about balance all year long. It's the thing they didn't have. And it's the thing that right now, again, I have to report what has happened. I have to report what is official. I can't assume. Right now, Penn State doesn't have a number one receiver on the roster, assuming a couple of things happen from players moving on. There's talent in the room, but I don't think there's a lot of great elite talent in the room. There's guys that can make plays, but if you're asking the quarterback to elevate the team, we saw that's not happening. So now the offensive coordinator has to generate open receivers for the quarterback. I think that's your biggest hope, truthfully. And this is an area where it's difficult for me talking about Andy Kotelnicki and what he's going to bring to Penn State from here's what he did at Kansas. And there's things that he'll bring, for sure. And a lot of the stuff that you can see, the breakdowns, the film, we're going to get into more of that here in the offseason with the Blue White Illustrated, BlueWhiteIllustrated.com and the film room. Kind of like Manny Diaz coming to Penn State and bringing his defense. What is he going to do with the talent he has? Not with what we've seen him do. And I think there's a big difference between the talent he has at Penn State, believe it or not, and Kansas, especially along the offensive line. So what is the run game that he wants to install at Penn State? How is that going to change the front and how they attack up front? But then is he going to use all of those things that he used at Kansas? The one thing we know about Andy Kotelnicki is he's going to put his players into position to succeed. That is the number one thing all his former players have said. That's the number one thing I've seen from him on film. You're not going to see like a photocopy of the Kansas offense. So whatever he decides to do with this team next year, Andrew Aller's strengths, or maybe it's Bo Prabula, and there is a competition at quarterback. That is a large unknown to me. And there are certain things that are going to come, and we'll figure those things out together this offseason. There are certain things that I think come from Buffalo to Kansas that he's brought along throughout his tenure as an offensive coordinator. But you got to hope that he can scheme receivers open, because these guys are not getting open on their own. Dylan says, why not go for on a 4th and 1, down by 6 after half at midfield with an offense that he knew probably couldn't play catch up? Why not take the risk? Sorry, this is not a truth juice conversation. This is just I'm a little raspy. This is a great question, because he went for it early in the game, down at the goal line, and got a touchdown. And I said at that point, let's remember this conversation when later in the game he does something that you don't agree with because he got points. He got 4 extra points there. This is an area where I agree. It's 4th and 1. He was probably betting on his defense playing better. Like the Penn State defense. All year they have been a team led by their defense. And I think he miscalculated. I think it was a mistake. And maybe, put it this way, if they don't get it, he's putting a defense that's struggling in a bad position at midfield. Now, had it been Chop Robinson and Kalen King out there, maybe he does go for it, because you know what? I feel like our defense is on it today. Abdul Carter's hurt. Do you want to put them at the 50 and potentially give them an easy score? So I would say that would be the reason. But at the same time, that defense was giving up yards like it was Halloween and it's candy. So it's not an easy decision. I probably would have gone for it because I don't have anything riding on it. I go for it in Madden. I don't get it. I get mad. I quit the game and start over. That's how I play it. So, I don't have to suffer the consequences of not getting it. And we've seen him earlier in this year go for it in those situations, not make it, and then have an issue, kind of the opposite of that, where fans are arguing the other side of it. So I would say, not a perfect play calling game from James Franklin, including the halftime stuff, which wasn't great. Referee calls, especially early in the game, was it good? I saw one play where Kobe King was arm tackled by an offensive lineman, and I looked at the replay, and the ref was staring right at it, and they didn't call it. There were some holding calls. You always get that in football. There are some holding calls. There were some pretty obvious ones, though, that I thought didn't get called. But generally, I don't think that was a part of this game. I think that there were some missed calls that caused problems for Penn State's offense staying on the field, but generally, Ole Miss beat Penn State. Just too many moving parts with the staff and players against a good team, is what James Franklin had to say in his post-game comments, which apparently are up right now. You should definitely go and check those out. We are here at the end. We've gone an hour. You got a bonus minute from me. I appreciate everyone being here. Thank you to the hundreds of people that have been here live all year, the thousands of people that have been here live all year long, and everyone that showed up today. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. The Blue White Illustrated live show will keep going, obviously. New Year's Day is a Monday. We'll be back next week with our live shows talking about recruiting and the team. Going into a dead period, we're probably going to get some interesting creative content about recruiting, but we'll definitely have things to talk about with the Penn State football team. So we're not going anywhere. We're just going away and saying goodbye right now for the postgame show, which has been very rewarding for me personally. This is the first year that I've had to do it by myself, by the way, and I'm not really alone because I've got you guys, and you've been great. Whether you've been angry, whether you have been happy, whether you have been tired when this is in the middle of the night at 1 a.m., or whether it's in the middle of the afternoon at 5, and oh goodness, it's dark outside already. Thank you for being here. We'll be back next season with the BWI Live postgame show. And before then, we got spring ball coming up. Don't get all emotional. We'll talk to you later.